find you in a hurry when I want to come to my Andy Ryan Mitchell, let me go. On behalf of...
Just a minute, I'll be right on you, Dick.
I don't get near me, I get nervous.
Get your speech ready now, here we go.
I'll have to clean it up now.
Uh-oh, that's right.
What did my daughter do all this?
Well, I don't certainly want to go over there because that would probably be a little, not quite as clean as yours.
They're bad over there.
Where am I sitting?
At the head table. Where I'll sit here and Frank here so he can use his tripod.
Is that all right, Joe?
Hi. I'm Nelson and that's Mary Nelson. Mary's here.
Where? Where are you sitting?
Here and here.
Over here and here?
Oh, I think you know it's like yeah. Oh, I didn't notice that. Sure. So did you want one to yeah. Just not tonight. We don't have to worry about tonight. Maybe. You are happy. We need our needs turned on anyway. Just a couple. It needs turned on.
Just a couple of things before we start. First of all, most people have one of these agendas so you know what's going on? If not, we have some extra, Gordon, is that right? If you need a program of what is to take place and who's roasting Larry this evening. They're up front, or if you want to pass them over, whatever. After the roasting of Larry and he recuperates and we recuperate, we'll have a dance later on. There is an, what do you want to call it, free beer and free pop this evening. And there's a cash bar if you're a mixed drinker. Whatever. If you don't drink beer, you have to pay, okay? Another thing is Harriet and I have the list of those who have not paid. And we will dance with you this evening and introduce ourselves if we don't know you. And we'll meet you later. We have one of those dances where you can pay $1 and dance with us.
And Marco.
It's going to be a fight to dance with, and the ladies don't even stand a chance, I don't think. I want to kick off a little bit and tell you a little bit of how this came about. Harriet Wellnitz and Harriet and Frank have been wanting to do this for years, and I've only known Larry for 2, but wanted to chime in and help with planning of this. And we started way back in July, I think, of trying to, who do we know, and let's really dust off the cobwebs and the old address books of Larry's and try to dig into the past and get dirt on him. And I think we did pretty well tonight because he's up here he was running around tonight trying to find out what we're going to say about him, and he was really red. So I think we have some scoops on him. But we started in July, and that's when the Helix and Hull camp was going on at Marion College, so I could contact Mitch. And we really have people from representing a lot of states tonight, which is real important and really valuable to Larry. Just to let you know. I just want to share one thing with you so you can understand where Larry's coming from just this evening. Getting Larry here this evening took a bit of work on my part and a huge argument on our part. Because this date has been on the calendar, mine and his school calendar, for 3 months. And it has just said reception. And as you know, a reception is usually what follows when people get married. And so immediately, anything related to the M word got him frantic and sweating and asking lots of questions. So I told him, I knew a reception wouldn't work about a marriage. So I said, no, I'm asked to speak for a boss, former boss of mine who was at Wisconsin Lions Camp. And I was giving an award put on by the Lions this evening. And kind of fell for that. But some of you might think that Larry is my boss. Well, that's not true. I'm doing this, believe me, on a volunteer basis. And I know that working with him is a full-time job. And it is challenging and all of that. But I'll tell you, the fringe benefits. Marco, let me tell you, it's worth it. Let me tell you. Truly, though, this evening, it did cause tension because Larry did have a alumni spaghetti dinner planned for his alumni this evening, and he was kind of taking it personally, and he didn't understand why no one was responding with, yes, I'll be at your house for spaghetti. Everyone kept saying, no, we can't come, we can't come. He was really getting upset about that. But I wanted to let you know, it really, I think, shows that he does care about his kids and his wrestlers, and he does follow them when they get out of high school. I try to keep in touch with them and invite them back all the time, just to let you know that he does do that, and that don't take it personally. They're all here who you invited, so that's why you didn't have spaghetti dinner tonight. First man that we have to toast, roast, that was their choice, an option. I didn't tell them. Larry this evening is Bob Gunner. Bob Gunner is Larry's collegiate wrestling coach at Winona State College back then, university now. He coached Larry for 4 years, and Larry assisted him for 1 year. So here's Bob Gunner from Winona, Minnesota.
First, I'd like to apologize to you for using notes, but the material that I was going to use, my wife said I couldn't use it. We were listening to the Clarence Thomas thing coming out. You can't do that. You can't do it's really great. It's fantastic. You can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to have to speak from notes. But, Larry, have you ever wrestled Donald Duck? Tell the truth. Have you ever wrestled Donald Duck?
I don't know.
That's not what you told me at my home. Have you ever wrestled Donald Duck? Yes, he wrestled Donald Duck. How's the rehab program going? Okay, this one story, we were wrestling at the Midlands, and I'm sure, Joanne's father was familiar with that, and he was wrestling Hobbit. They both went in, head to head, and, they're both sort of staggering. The doctor comes running out, and he asked Larry, he said, Larry, what's 2 + 2? Larry said 5. The doctor came over to me. He said, I think there's something wrong with him. I said, no, he thought that before he said it. We're wrestling in this tournament at Ames, Iowa, and I'm going into the rooms and checking, and I find Larry there, and he's got this jug, and it's all white, and I said, Larry, what is that? And he said, oh, that's water. And I'm thinking, we're not in Mexico, we're in Iowa. So anyway, I said, let me taste it. So I take a sip. I said, that tastes like wine. Larry gets down on his knees, makes a sign of the cross, and says, it's a miracle. Pouring off the berry and everything else. And then we were wrestling in this tournament, I forgot, Lockhaven, Bloomsburg, and Larry had a bye. I said, who are you wrestling, Larry? He said, I got bye. Do you know anything about him? I said, Larry, don't worry about a thing. I'll coach you through it. Don't worry about a thing. Now, I understand he's going to high-tech coaching. He's using his computer. I talked to some of the faculty members, and they know when he's used their computers because there's white out on the screen. Now, if you want to get a laugh out of Larry on Saturday, you have to tell him a joke on Wednesday. The other ones were more funny, but in all seriousness, I'll tell you, one of the greatest persons I've ever coached. One of the finest young men to graduate from Winona State University. And we're all very, very proud of him. If I had all wrestlers like Larry, I've been a fantastic coach. And I'll tell you, we have this friendship, and it will always remain. I'm very happy to be here, to be part of his roast, and I'm sorry I couldn't give you the real truth.
Thanks, Bob. Next person to roast Larry on the agenda is Leah Meyer. A brief description about Larry. I sent these out, and this is what I get back. He's from Waverly, Iowa. He's a crop farmer and livestock farmer. Went to Winona, 64 to 68. He has a wife, Janine, and a child, Jolene and Dan. Please summarize how you know Larry. I lived with Larry for 2.5 or 3 years. I was on the wrestling team with Larry for 3 years. I'm the guy that made Larry's ears look so funny. Great expense. Larry Meyer. Come on down.
Well, first off, I have to apologize for everybody being here. Because I really didn't get dressed for this occasion because I didn't think Larry had this many friends up here. And really, I apologize to everybody. It's been, golly, what, 3 years since I've seen Larry now, and I appreciate him calling me to come up here. It's going to be a fun evening for us over with. Super fun. If I would go, there's probably only 3 of us in here that would know what that means, and I'm not going to tell the rest of you. I realize we're supposed to get maybe a nice, maybe a little on this deal. But I'm not going to tell you what that means. I think Larry probably has more style than anybody I've ever seen in my life. I mean, look at the man right now that he has the good-looking clothes on, the flower, and those silly little lyrics. Now, listen to the Thomas trials on the way up here today. You got to be a little careful what we're saying here. But we've all heard of silicone. And I helped put the silicone in those ears. No fact. That's just it. That me and Larry lived, what, basically 2.5, 3 years together. A lot of fun. I could talk about, what, Larry? You kind of graduated a year before I did, and we could talk about the time he bought a brand new Mustang. This is his first year of teaching. He was teaching in, Fond du Lac, Larry? Fountain City, yes. Had a brand new one of those nice little Mustangs that we had today if you worth a lot of bucks. And he was really proud of that car. And somebody stole it from him. And what, Larry, they found that hanging over a cliff at a lime quarry, possibly shot through a holes or something. It was it was sad to him, but to the rest of us, we were all on the social scale level. We all had to kind of work together, but it was funny at the time to me, Dan. It wasn't funny to Larry, because there's his new Mustang hanging over this lime quarry ledger, all beat to pieces. Or, let's see here, Wisconsin, there's a lot of things in Wisconsin. You know, something that really bugged Larry is he was a little older than the rest of us guys. In fact, he was probably the legal age to buy alcoholic beverages. And the rest of us was not. And it just seems like if we would stay in Minnesota, we all got along real good. And we'd go to Wisconsin, which of course, if you're familiar with Winona and stuff, is right across the river. And we'd go over to, right across the borderline there. There they'd be bugging Larry for his ID, which definitely made him inferior to the rest of us. You know, the rest of us was 17 and 19 years old and whatever, and Larry was 21 on us. A sad situation there, but we've all heard of Arcadia. I happen to do my student teaching there, and we end up in Arcadia days. Now, you know, they have the big broiler days up there, and they got the big horse pulls. Well, they do serve alcoholic beverages up there. Now, I take it whatever we say here tonight stays here tonight. But somewhere along the line, we run into an old style, I think, is what they have over there. Fountain brew or whatever it may be. But we was all watching the horse pulling all this carnival business going on. And Mary and Larry ran onto this tent here, and there's these two guys that probably look like what I'll look like another 5 years from now, with the big pomp belly and the whole thing. And they're in this wrestling ring, pulling on the ropes and all this stuff. And the first thing I know is here's our little Bambino there, challenging these guys. We're going to take you guys on. Now, here's these two professional wrestlers whipping each other, and here is two little guys from Winona State supposed to challenge these guys. Well, as it be, they threw us out of there before we got really involved. But we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about style a little bit. How much style do you want me to talk about, Larry? We got style, I'm telling you. Kind of weird is, I don't know how many people are really familiar with Winona. Myself, I lived there for 4 years, and I swear to God, I don't know how they could come up with East Winona and West Winona, because everything looked north and south to me, but whatever, you know, the Mississippi runs north and south. That's where the city ought to be, is north and south. But it has minorities and whatnot. But anyway, we get word that East Winona, you know, of course, is more of a Polish community. And Polish people are wonderful people. They're big and ugly, but they're wonderful people. Now, you don't take an Italian and a German and go down in the Polish community, I'm telling you. Well, here I am, thanks to probably Bob Gunner and Bob Keister. They got me this little help going to school there that I'm a dorm counselor. So I have to be, you know, I got to run this level scale. But it's hard to run a level scale, you know, people like Larry. Anyway, we were kind of visiting, and, you know, we did know a few people around town. Larry comes home one early afternoon, and he says, I fell in love. And we're looking at him, you know, and basically it was me and Larry and the two Skravik boys, Dan sitting over there and Perry King. He comes home and he says, I fell in love, you know, and he's going around like this, you know, just crazy. I fell in love, I seen the most beautiful girl in my life today. Well, of course, you know, we've gone through this program before. You know, I got a dog that falls in love once a month. Well, anyway, getting real serious, you know.
You are cutting into part of my story.
I'm kind of glad I'm number two here, because I mean, he led a real cultural life there at the college. But anyway, getting back to the story here, like I say, we're talking style and we're talking love right now. I did mention my dog, didn't I? Yeah. And he comes back. Now, we lived on, what the hell street was that, Dan? King Street. This is a weird house. That's another whole story. Next to the railroad tracks. Quick moment on King. I'm supposed to talk for 5 minutes, basically.
Time's up.
King. I gotta finish my one story.
That's okay, you got 3 more minutes.
Anyway, we get word there, you know, where he comes back, he says, I'm in love. I just met the most beautiful girl that I've ever seen in my life. Well, this was the time, you know, when go-go dancing and this type of stuff was just getting on a roll. Now, I took him home with me one weekend, and we ended up in East Waterloo. That's a place where you want to be a little bit sharp. You can get along fine, just keep your mouth shut and just go with the flow. But anyway, that's what we learned on go-go dancing in East Waterloo. But here he comes home, I'm in love. I've met the most beautiful girl in my life. And we goes, well, where is that, Larry? And he says, it's down on East something or another. Like I say, it was in East Winona, which again throws us into this Polish district, which are wonderful people. Big, but they're wonderful. So he goes, what kind of girl is it? And she said, she is just beautiful. So we ends up going down there with him. Well, luck as it be, I run into a couple guys I've known from Winona that were familiar with Winona and La Crosse. And we were sitting at this table having a Pepsi. And the guy says, I know him. I said, what do you mean you know him? Well, that guy is from La Crosse that's dancing out there. Well, meanwhile, Larry is out there just loving her up, you know, head on his shoulder. He's doing this little thing, you know, smiling at you, you know, little chin pointing out there a little bit. We go, so what in the hell is this business here, you know? This guy says this is a fruitcake dancing out there with Larry, you know. Larry's our roommate, we can't have this happening. Well, being all on the financial level we were, we all kind of had to watch our dollar bills as we was kind of going through school there. I'll bet 50, I got 50 cents I'll put on the table if somebody proves that that's not a real sweetie he's got there. Well, you know, probably I can't, you know, hell, this has been, what, 20 years, 25 years ago that we're going through this deal. But, you know, you start talking $5 or $6, and that's big dollars. Larry's out there dancing yet. Big old smile on his face, little chin pointing out. If I remember right, she was a brunette. Or he was a brunette. Needless to say, the money got up to where it was very tempting. Somehow along the line, I could say he was out there having a hell of a good time. This morning had danced away with his new love. Meanwhile, the money is flowing in. We probably got up to $6. Anybody who wants $6 just go up there and take your hair off. Well, needless to say, somebody did that. I know who did that. I needed the money more than anybody else did. But yes, it was a real sad situation. Larry fell out of love in a hurry. Guy had a real short haircut. Brunette, but it was a real short one. But Larry, I really appreciate the things you did bring me through. We could talk about all kinds of gizmos and things that happened. That's one of the highlights of my life in West Winona. Going down to East Winona and getting Larry out of the bar. But anyway, I would have to say the same thing that Bob Gunner did, is Larry was a real good influence on me as far as wrestling goes. He helped me a whole bunch. I know the work that he's put into Fond du Lac here, but I've seen him in a couple national wrestling tournaments. I don't think the people could ask for a better person than what they have right in this town. I'm sure that he does one hell of a good job for all of you. So, Larry, I think I know what people mean when they want to congratulate you on 25 years.
Thanks, Larry. And Larry, this doesn't come off, just so you know. Okay, next we have is Andy Wright. He is the head coach at University of Wisconsin-Madison, 1984 Olympian silver medal winner. He was the head coach on a cultural exchange trip I took in 1975, meaning that Andy was the little wrestler going and Larry was the coach. And now Rocco is at Wisconsin Wrestling. So Andy, please.
Well, I'm a rookie at this roasting business, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm having a good time listening to all this, and I hope I don't have to go through this in my life. But I've known, well, first of all, I want to know, are we in East Fond du Lac or West Fond du Lac? North, South, whatever. I've known the Marciano family for approximately 25 years. Probably the year Larry started coaching, I started wrestling. And you know, I didn't know Larry back then, but I knew his brother Gordy, and I have to say that Gordy was my first wrestling coach, and probably had a lot to do with the success that I had. I remember Gordy one day telling me about his family, and Gordy said that they had a large family, parents, kids, and about 12 dogs, collie pups. Gordy told me that in an effort to give Larry some playtime, they had to tie a pork chop around his neck so that the dogs would play with him. I know that's a real old one, but Larry liked dogs, but he sincerely loves the sport of wrestling. When he was in grade school, he was considered a smart kid, and his teacher one day told her class that there's a lot of plants and flowers out there that have the prefix dog. There's a dog Rose, there's a dog Violet, for instance. Can any of you name another? Asked the teacher. And there was silence for a while. Then Larry had this happy look on his face. Teacher, he said politely, how about cauliflower? And speaking of cauliflower, have you taken a look at Larry's ears? To me, those ears don't look like cauliflower. They look more like Idaho potatoes. Hey, Larry was a good wrestler in his day. He practiced very hard, but he would spend a lot of time on this machine called the Adam takedown machine. And just to fill you in a little bit, I don't know how many people know what an Adam takedown machine is, But it's this machine that looks like a human, sort of bends at the back, and it hangs on a wall. It's bolted on the wall. Impossible to get down unless you take a wrench to it. So a college teammate of Larry's once told me that he was watching Larry work out with Adam, consistently taking shots, trying to take him down. The teammate told Larry, sorry for him, that he would be willing to wrestle with him. But Larry said he needed to keep wrestling with Adam to get a takedown so that he could build his confidence up. But I don't know that he ever got that takedown. Coaching is a tough profession. And one thing wrestlers have to deal with, and the coaches, is weight control. One of Larry's first years as coach, he recommended to his star athlete that he should strive to lose 12 pounds during the preseason. So Larry's instructions were to go out and run 5 miles a day for 30 miles. Well, the wrestler called Larry 30 days afterwards and complained that he was unhappy with the weight loss program that Larry put him on. But haven't you lost the weight, Larry said? Well, sure I did, but I'm 150 miles away from home. How can anybody stay in the same profession for 25 years? I remember Larry talking to his boss one day, and his boss asked him if he received the letter. And Larry said, yes, sir. And I read the inside and the outside. The inside said, you're fired. The outside said, return in 5 days. So here I am. Now, I commend Larry for his 25 years of service. He's built a great program here in Fond du Lac, capping it last year with the state championship. But Larry is involved with wrestling at all levels in the state of Wisconsin. And a project that I think Larry had a hand in and still does has been involved, and he's been involved with this since the late 1970s, is the cultural exchange program. And in 1975, I was on a cultural exchange trip to Romania along with Mitch and some other wrestlers from the state of Wisconsin. Larry was the coach and our team leader. But the cultural exchange required the athletes to go out and raise $1,500. I raised it, and I had visions that we're going to be flying in a big airplane, my first time. We'll be staying with foreign families, learning the culture, and we'll be doing a lot of great sightseeing. The architect and the statues and things like this, learning a lot about the foreign countries. Well, the trip to Romania was interesting. And we flew over, we took a 36-hour train ride from Frankfurt, Germany to Romania, with the train being oversold. We were sitting one on top of each other for 36 hours. No bath, no shower, nothing. We stayed in some housing project in the slums. And our sightseeing was basically looking out the window at prisoners being watched by armed guards. But one day, the team was a little bored, and we wanted to play a joke on Larry. So as he was sleeping one day, I guess I was the guy that was the one responsible for this. I don't know how the team got me to do this. But anyway, we had a little joke going, and we took some shaving cream, okay, and we got a few of the guys on this, and it was pretty fun. So we were laughing, having a good time. So they said, Brian, go in there and get Coach Marciana. I said, okay. So I go in there, I'm on my tiptoes, I'm sneaking, okay? What I wanted to do is put the shaving cream on his hand. So as I'm depressing this thing, right there, okay, all of a sudden, Larry gets up, surprised. He grabs me, he picks me up, he throws me down. My toe was broken because it hit the bed on the way up. I think my back was broken because it hit the floor on the way down. And he proceeded to scold me. Well, needless to say, I have a lot of respect for Larry, and I am grateful to have the opportunity at this point in time to coach Rocco, his son, and I look forward to sharing in the success that Larry will have. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. The next person to roast Larry, or toast Larry, is his brother, Gordy. Gordy sent in a little brief description about himself. Former high school and college teammate of Larry. Even did a lot of wrestling together in the same home. That's because he's my brother. He's a teacher at Richland School District. He's a former high school coach of 19 years, and he's presently an official at the high school and college level. Gordy is here. He's also a new father of a baby, Sarah, who's snoozing. Cordy, please come on down.
Well, it's quite an honor to be here, really. I was kind of shocked when I got the call. I really didn't think it was 25 years already. Time flies so fast. Before I get started, there's two reasons why. First of all, there are 3 brothers in the family and 3 sisters. I was ranked number 1, Larry ranked number 2. We have another brother ranked number 3, and then the 3 girls came along. And there's basically 2 reasons why we started the sport of wrestling. One is my mother. She couldn't always put up, or was having a hard time putting up with us always fighting in a house. And our dad was quite a fierce competitor in athletics, basically boxing when he was going through school. And so he heard about the wrestling program down in high school, and he sort of focused our attention into the wrestling field. And being 3 brothers, we had a lot of practice. I think probably our mother was more upset that he got us into wrestling, because then we were wrestling practically every night. We weren't out doing chores on the farm. And when we were growing up, we didn't have to worry about lifting weights. We had wheat bags and bean bags and all kinds of things to pick up every night, it seemed like. And we didn't have to worry about going downtown and getting into trouble, because we had plenty of work to do on the farm. So I'd like to say thanks to our mother who's back there, and our dad passed away in 1976. We probably really feel privileged to be here tonight. I'd like to congratulate Larry on his continued motivation and dedication and love for the sport. And I'd like to just say a couple things from most of the people here know Larry from back in college, and some of the things I really didn't get to. And I'll give you some of the reasons toward the end why I didn't get to him, because he was only a year after me, but he graduated way past me. I mean, like they were saying, he was 21 or 19, and these guys couldn't even drink yet. There's a reason for that, and I'll get to that a little bit later. And that also explains why he loved wrestling so much. Maybe he doesn't remember it, but I do. First of all, back in high school, Larry was really dedicated right from the beginning, and I can remember us 3 guys, we'd always sit in front of the bus. We'd never talk. We were getting ourselves mentally prepared for that match. And we used to irritate us, because behind the bus the kids are horsing around, laughing, and having a good time. And when they got on the mat, they didn't have such a good time. But consistently, we could go home with a 15-point score, and the other team would score the other 40 or 35 points. We'd come away with 3 pins, and that was quite consistent. I'd wrestle, or we had a brother wrestle 98 or 95 in that time, I guess. Larry's 103 and I was 120. And if we could only get those other guys and back the bus to settle down and do a little bit, and I think that's probably what intrigued us into coaching, is trying to instill the importance of the sport and the dedication. While you're out there and you're working hard every night in practice, you gotta really get down and do the job on a mat. Anyway, I want to say a little bit about the bus rides, because he was dedicated right from the start, and he loved wrestling. We all did. First of all, he had a nickname back in high school, and I don't think it followed him through in college. We used to call him Spider. He wrestled 103 pounds, and he looked like a spider. He was all arms and legs. And when he's out there wrestling, he uses his legs just like another set of arms. And he get in some positions that you had no idea what he had him tied up with, arms or legs. And very seldom did the wrestler go the full 6 minutes with Larry. Also, we had a dad, whenever we went home, he always stopped us from getting a big head. Because he'd look at you and say, "You mean you let that scrawny kid take you into the second period before you pinned him?" And if you ever won by decision, I don't care if the decision was 15-2 or whatever it was, he'd say, "My gosh, what are you going to do when you get to somebody good?" You know? You couldn't pin that guy? So he used to keep us tamed down and fired up and really motivated. It was quite an inspiration. And by the way, when we were in high school, we had 2 super fine coaches while I was there. They both lasted, I think, a couple of years apiece. Neither one of them had been on a wrestling mat before. So that meant we had to go to the library, dig out all the books. My dad us three boys would sit down, try to figure out these moves, and we'd teach ourselves. The coaches were great training, but they had the book right there on the mat, trying to figure them out practically every night too. So I think that's another thing. I know it really impressed me that I was going to do all I could for the sport of wrestling. And when I got out there, I wanted to do some coaching, and that's why I started a program in Stoughton and kept on. I'm sure that's why Larry's in the program right now. This is supposed to be a roast, so I got to get onto these hot items here like some of these guys start out with right away. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the Spider-Man. And let's see here. Okay, one incident that sticks in my mind, I have to mention this. I'm hitting a lot of positives. Pretty soon I'm going to hit a couple of negatives, but so many people came up here and took shots at him. He's my brother, so I got to hit some hot ones here that aren't so, you know, degrading. I got to pick them up out of that swamp a little bit. But one instance that sticks in my mind back in college, and I've been officiating now for over 30 years, coaching for a number, and in wrestling, probably in other sports, but wrestling particularly, you always run into something that's almost unbelievable every year. And sometimes 2 or 3 things. And one of them sticks in my mind, has to do with Larry, and this is, I think last year they put this ruling in you could do, but not the way Larry did it. And it took him, I don't know how many years to get it in, 25, 30, more than that. Anyway, we're in wrestling in Iowa. I don't remember the schools, either Northern Iowa, Luther, Loris, one of those schools. And Larry was out there wrestling. He used his legs, threw on a guillotine, and he had it so tight, and I'm sure you people have all seen somebody in a guillotine real tight, and there's no way you're going to get those shoulders to the mat. There's just none. The guy's just stretched out. He's ready to rip in two. The kid's screaming. Larry's there saying, "Give up then, give up. Get your shoulders down, give up, quit, say uncle." And by gosh, the referee blew the whistle, and I figured, what? And he's going to break the match, you know, because somebody's getting hurt. Raised Larry's hand. The coach of the other team, that was his son that Larry's wrestling. I thought that guy was going to go right through the ceiling. He got up, screamed, "Hi, show me that in the rule book." He said the guy quit. He didn't want to wrestle anymore, so I stopped the match. That's the end of the match. Now they can do it. I started this, I think it was last year, they started in high school wrestling where the coach or wrestler can quit if he wants to, and there's no problem. But I can remember back, that was way back, maybe it's 1962. Okay, that was one incident. Now, another one. Back when Larry was in college, one of the reasons why Larry's a little bit older is when he first started wrestling, he found out Winona State was on a quarter system. And he figured, God, if I don't go the first quarter and I come in the second quarter, I can wrestle all wrestling season. I can quit. I come back next year and wrestle. I come back next year and wrestle. He says, I'll never get my 4 years in. I'll be able to wrestle 10, 15 years here. And then down when he did this 2 or 3 years, one of the coaches got a hold and said, Larry, you know, you've only got 4 years eligibility. And he thought, well, I'm never going to get my degree in 4 years. He says, can I keep on wrestling? No, the rules don't allow you to keep on wrestling. So then Larry settled down. But his grades showed up a little bit, you know, down the slope there, because he was just really interested in wrestling the first years. And I can remember point blank, my dad telling me this when I went home one summer. He said, boy, he said, you know what Larry told me? He said, he really must think I'm dumb. He said, or else Winona's really an unusual college. And I said, what's that? He said, well, I asked him why he got these poor grades, because the college used to send these grades home in a letter, just like high schools do now. And my dad opened them up, and he had some grades that weren't too good. So he questioned Larry, and Larry said, hey, he said, I got good grades on the test. He said, but one thing that really hurts me in college, and he said, that's why my grades show it, he said, they average your weight and your height in. I swear that's the truth. Okay, let's see here. I've covered about most of them. I would like to really congratulate Larry on his continued motivation in the sport, to stay motivated for 25 years, the dedication he's put into the sport, because you have to put a lot of hours in. I was talking to the Purdue coach here tonight about how many months. I don't know him because I only knew him when he was a little guy like this, and I forget.
You knew I was yelling at you last year.
No, I forgot that already. Anyway, I asked him what kind of a month contract's he on. He said, "Oh, I'm on a 10-month contract, but I work 12." And that's true of any high school coach or anybody in the coaching field of wrestling. If you want to have a successful team, you've got to coach 12 months out of the year. Spend many weekends away from home and many late hours. So again, Larry, congratulations. I'm proud of you. And the success you've had here at Fond du Lac has been fantastic. Thank you. Everybody.
The only other story I remember Larry told me once about being at home in the high school wrestling career that he had. They didn't have televisions back then, or maybe they did, but you didn't have one. I can't remember, Larry. But he and his brother were supposed to wrestle, I believe, at State that night in Penn, New York, and they had, what, 13 feet of snow? And people were listening on the radio, and they had heard that the Marchand brothers were snowed in, and in order to make State, they couldn't get there, and they had practically the whole town come out and pick up and shovel them out so that they could make it to State, which I think is kind of a neat honor, but that ties in with the family. Next up is Roger Phyllis. And when I asked for a brief description of yourself, Roger says he's good looking, he's a great guy. Please summarize how you know Larry. He knows Larry while he was knew Larry while he was at Winona State, and he's been friends ever since. His team beat him from 2 different schools. Larry always got into fights downtown, and I had to get him out. So, with further ado, Roger.
I don't know why Larry gets so nervous when I get up here with a bunch of papers and stuff. And he gets a chance to get back at me in another couple weeks here, but he says, "Remember, I get the last shot." And I says, "Yeah, but I know you're going to take your best one, so I'm going to take my best one." We heard a lot about Thomas and his hearings in here, and I do have to elaborate on that. I had some of that was bothering me on the way down here. I really got a kick out of that when Ted Kennedy is sitting there questioning about morale. Blew my mind all the way down here. When I got in this crowd here, I said, "Boy," I said, my material's like Mr. Gunner, and I was a little worried and concerned that Larry's mother's here and that. But you kind of broke the ice for me there. I let her go, you know. When I first time I saw Larry, it's sort of like, you know, you hear the rest of the story type thing. I'm glad Larry Wiedemeyer elaborated on the rest of the story. First time I ever seen Larry, I went to Winona State after I was at the University of Wisconsin, and then I worked with sort of an assistant to the assistant underneath Bob Gunner, and Larry and I was after he was done wrestling and I was done wrestling, and we kind of helped out with the team, and he took care of the lightweights and I took care of the heavier weights, and but I didn't meet Larry before that. I was down in this east side of the town, you know, and this is the truth. I'm walking down the street, going down the street, and all of a sudden this bar door flies open, and out comes skidding down the sidewalk this little tiny Italian, see, and he goes right underneath the car. You know, Larry didn't tell about the fight that proceeded after he pulled that hair off, see. And this guy jumps up from the other side of the car, you know, and this big bouncer, this big burly bouncer comes out, you know, and Larry had to jump up in the air to punch him a couple of times, and a guy tried to grab a hold of him, and Larry ducked underneath the car, and he come out on the other side, you know. First time I ever saw him was right there. I ended up later on kind of working with him with the team, but I just was wondering who that character was at the time. I got to confess something to Larry here, and I always thought those ears problems or something else besides Larry. So one of the games we used to play with him, and Larry played it, and Dan played it over here with him. We'd go go in a bar, and there'd be Larry. He was always hustling some chick sitting on a bar stool, you know. And Larry and I would get together. And who's that boxer that we used to muck? John, was it the boxer that?
Tom Van Phil.
Yeah, what was it?
Tom Van Phil.
All right, Tom. This guy was a Golden Gloves boxer and quite tough. And then there was a karate nut from the University of Minnesota, was captain of the gymnast team, and he was in karate. And guys, we had kind of a rough crew hanging out together. One thing I can't believe is, you know, I'm a non-drinker. I don't know how I got involved with these guys, but we go in the bar, and there'd be, you know, the big Polish side of town. That's where we found this Italian all the time. And he'd be sitting there on the bar stool hustling somebody, and we walk up to the toughest guy in the bar. And it was either Larry or I'd do it, and we'd say, hey, boy, are you a chicken gutless guy, you know? The guy didn't know if he wanted to fight us or not, you know, and he says, what are you saying that for? And I'd say, well, that little squirt down there in the end says you backed down from 3 times already, you know? Maybe Larry hustles up chicken, and the guy go up behind and a wail, you know? The old rooster, you'd have to jump up in the air and punch him off, and we'd stand up and chuckle at him all the time. That's the way the was kind of. He never knew why he was always getting in fights all the time, you know? I want to really get down to some of his coaching things, though. You know, yes, he is a great coach, and he's an honorable. Well, you know, Larry could do probably most anything, except I know he couldn't be a Supreme Court judge. So that I know after these hearings, that he wouldn't make that. You know, well, I tell him about it. I'm sure they wouldn't have to do this much digging, you know. But even in his coaching area, you know, he's a real honest coach and all that. But once I was coaching against him the first time, you know, I was really concerned. I knew he was a great coach and a hard worker and a driver. And we had a match against him, and it was coming up. And I said, boy, I better go scout this guy, you know. So, and this thing was a little town across the highway here. I can't remember the name of the town. I go up to this town, I get there, and I'm looking at him. That's just when they brought those lines out on the match. You had to put your hands out and your knees in one spot. And he knew I was going to bring up that story. And I was watching him. He was real slick. You know, finally, I had one of the best inside stand-ups you could imagine. You know, but they put their hands down on their knees and put their hands out, and the ref would get out front, and then they'd bring up their hands, but they'd slide their hands over the line. I says, boy, that's cheating, you know. That's terrible. I says, you know, can't believe my old buddy would do that. I said, I'm going to have to teach him a lesson or two. So he comes over to Port Washington, and the worst thing was, I forgot about the match. It was when it's off-schedule thing, we call on the phone, yeah, we'll fit one in there. And coming to school in the morning, I thought, oh my gosh, I forgot about the match. My kids are all overweight. I thought, well, that's no problem. He didn't know anybody around here, you know. And we weighed in one team, we wrestled another team on him, and he had a little problem on that. So I was concerned about this cheating thing. So I says, Larry, I says, you know, we've been good buddies, and I says, I'll tell you what, Larry, I says, I'm going to beat you tonight. I says, but I'm going to do it crookedly. I said, I'm not going to do it honestly. He says, I'll watch everything you're doing. You're not going to get me, you know. So I took those lines, you know, and I moved them out to 15 inches. It's supposed to be 12. And I went to the ref, you know, and I says, gee, I don't understand this new rule. I says, the fingertips on the line, that's what Fine Line's doing, you know. And he says, well, I'll watch that, you know. And this 98-pounder, I thought he was going to get stretched out another inch or so, trying to reach on the thing. I sounded caution, you know. You got to get out there farther, you know. After the match, I had to remind Larry, well, we got you, you know. No, he didn't get you. I says, did you measure the lines, Larry? And then he had some hostile things to say, which I won't repeat right now. But he did leave me down one time. He really left me down. You know, good friends and everything else and buddies. And when I got married, I asked Larry if he'd be best man for my wedding. And he says, oh, he said, wait a minute. He said, look at my wife there, you know, she's real tall. My father was 6'5", and he knew that, you know. And he said, here I am. You want me to be best man in a wedding like that? And I says, yeah. He said, well, he said, yeah, I do, Larry. And he said, I got to think about it. Call him up. He says, well, Larry, you decide. He said, under one condition, he says. He says, I want a nude wedding. I says, a nude wedding? He says, yeah. He says, I want